She thinks it's the doorbell. That's so funny. Okay, so we removed this flooring up to here. This is linoleum. It smells like burning. On top of underlayment that's about a 1/4 inch thick. What we removed is about 1 1/8 to get down to the subflooring, because this is all going to get tile. We're going to use the Ditra system, I think it's called, from Schluter, and then of course tile adhesive, then the tile. The tile is about 3/8 of an inch thick. Wherever that's going to meet the hardwood flooring, you know, I want it to be as close to flush as possible without any, you know, crazy thresholds or transition strips. I just want it to be like, well, perfect. But one of the things is this landing is also going to be tile. And this is linoleum over top of underlayment on top of the hardwood flooring. So it's all going to come out, but this door, it sweeps the linoleum as it sits right now. And so there's a threshold. I'll show you that here in a second. But I don't really know what's happening with this stair tread. That's linoleum, obviously, with a bullnose. Who knows what's underneath there? And I don't know if it's maple. The plan is we're gonna go tile on the landing, tile on the riser, tile on the tread, riser, and then right to the rest of the kitchen floor as it continues down the hallway, over the river, and through the woods of grandmother's house we go. I thought it might be a good idea now to understand exactly where this floor is in space. So I'm gonna create what we call a benchmark. And that way the tile guy knows that this is, with his laser beam, is going to be 41.5 inches. I'm gonna measure a couple of spots just to make sure that how crooked it is. You know it's not perfectly flat. All right, so I got 41 7/16 in that corner, 41 9/16 in that corner, 41.5 in that corner. What I'm gonna do is get where the door is. One thing you don't wanna have happen is when the door opens, perfect level here, but then as it opens here, it can only go down. The floor can only go down. You don't want it to rise up, otherwise it'll rub against the floor here. So this has got to be further away from the beam. So you got 41 5/16 over here, 41.5 here. So it's 3/16 of an inch difference, which is good. That floor falls away as the door opens. And I want to keep it that way. In fact, I might send the tile guy the clip of this video so that he understands, oh yeah, so we're all on the same page. But what I'm gonna do,
come on, skilled trades coming through.
Where's one? I'm already here. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I wanna create a benchmark, but where's that gonna be when they cover it with drywall and wallpaper and whatever? But I'm gonna hide, this is how smart I am. I'm gonna hide a mark on the hinge of this door. I mean, how, you can't go wrong with that. The benchmark is gonna be on the hinge plate. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna put a line here and I'm gonna put a line here. And I'm gonna write 41, so that's gonna be 41 5/16, okay? And then over here, where the door is all the way open, that is 41 9/16. So on the hinge, on the second part, I'm gonna write 41 9/16. And in a simple conversation, I can explain over the phone to the tile guy what was happening with this door. Because it's a wooden door, it can be cut down. I don't want to, but if you look real close, there's not, look at, there's a little finish nail. There's not a lot of room between the current floor and the bottom of the door. But over here, quite a bit more, said Eeyore. Okay, so I got about, I'm gonna say, a small 7/16 of an inch here, and over here, 5/32, large eighth. So quite a bit of difference, but that's how I want it to be. The last thing you want is for this floor to rise up and this door to scrape the floor. There's a bunch of stuff that rhymes with or here. Anyway, so that is one of the things as you're, you know, I mean, I'm not the general contractor, project manager, whatever guy. I'm just another pretty face. I'm just a guy, I've had time to think about these things because I took the floor out and then things, you know, and I'm staying right here on the job site. And so what I really want to tell the tile guy, hey, make sure, because mistakes happen. You know, this guy does drywalling, you know, moonlighting and whatever, and that'd be a really easy thing to overlook. And you're just like, just need tile on that landing. They told me tile on the landing, so there it is. But maybe he can, if he just like, oh, I didn't think of that. And he's like, oh, wait, what was the old floor at? Well, now we know. So the next thing I'm gonna do, the next important kind of detail is knowing if that was 41 5/16 from the laser. I'd also like to know what the landing is doing off of the same benchmark. That's 33 7/8 heavy. I'm gonna put on here, step is 33 7/8 heavy. And the reason why that's important is because if those measurements change, or they vary too much, as you go from the landing to the step to the main floor, if that varies too much, if it's a little bit off, grandma's going to trip every time she comes through the door, potentially. So I want those to be kind of like whatever the problem you got to solve between the tile and all the different thicknesses, make sure that when the door opens, it doesn't rub against the bottom as it opens. And when you walk in, you don't trip coming up through the doorway. That's why I'm going to put a benchmark, and I've got to hide it somewhere where it's not going to get covered. End of story, right, Derek?
The end.
The end.
The end.
Stay focused, safe, busy, and tuned for the next episode where we highlight the travel aspect of this project.